Derek, Emma, and Bonsai. Oh. Here we all are. I think that was a better intro than the first time. I'm glad we got the do-over on that.
Yeah. The do-over was good.
Don't count on it every week, though.
Okay, don't get a do-over every week. This is the problem with this live streaming stuff as opposed to just taped television. Not only do I have to make things up as I go along, I have to do it twice sometimes.
Yeah.
The problem or the opportunity?
You're right. I should be looking at it as an opportunity.
Yeah, we could just be here all day, just saying the same thing over and over and over again.
You're right. Thank you for this chance.
Welcome to Tabletop Twilight Zone.
Tabletop Twilight Zone, which is not like Tabletop Twilight, which is what we're going to be talking about first today. Just kidding. Our headlines is what we're going to start off with, and Emma is going to bring us into the exciting world of taxes and tariffs.
Taxes and tariffs, yeah. Ooh, what could be more exciting?
We wanted a really, really hard-hitting opening headline.
We're starting off on a high note this week.
So this is related to board games. You don't have to turn off the stream just now because you're like, oh, boring government stuff. So it is, if you've been on Twitter or Facebook in the board game sphere over the last week, that you've probably heard some rumblings about these proposed tariffs. So it is a proposal. It hasn't necessarily gone through yet, but what we're looking at potentially here is a 25% tariff on everything related to board games and toys.
Yep.
Potentially.
Potentially.
I mean, with a lot of these tariff things, the details are vague until they're implemented.
Yeah.
And then even then they're vague because you can apply for exemptions from the tariffs if you meet certain requirements, but the news has been, since the steel tariffs went into place a while ago, the news has been full of people attempting to get exemptions to these tariffs and then not getting them and not being told, like, it's a very complicated process.
I mean, they have some of the workarounds have been like, well, if you like get it printed and then like shipped to Mexico and then assembled, like people are already trying to figure out how to work around this.
Yeah.
You know, part of my my identity is staying as far away from things like politics as possible, but now they're messing with my games.
Yeah.
So
you mess with my games.
I think it's time that we as a group all just rise up and stick it to the man.
Yeah.
Because you know, steel and important goods are one thing, but I'm not paying extra for my games.
Not for my plastic minifigures.
I need, like, this is the straw that breaks the camel's back,
Yes,
right?
yes,
This is
absolutely.
our generation. This
Will not stand.
us.
Social injustice be damned. Financial injustice be damned. They're messing with my games.
The game.
Now we have something to fight for.
A rallying cry.
Oh.
Well, I think, in my opinion, anything that can, because I think, you know, there's a lot of stuff going on. Anything that can push people, like something actionable like this, to say like, hey, you know, this is something you can potentially contact your representatives about. It's not in play yet.
Yeah, apparently there will be like a hearing or a meeting, I think, mid-June.
Yeah.
To finalize some of these things. I mean, the reality is that, like, you know, I think the State Department and, you know, the executive branch have a lot of power in a lot of these things. And I think almost all of the previous tariffs that have been threatened have ended up going into action, but, you know, you have to at least give it a shot. So, you know, if this is something that concerns you, if you don't want to pay 25% or more, or if you have, you know, been running a Kickstarter, or you know, you're a store.
That means that your average everyday Kickstarter style board game is going to cost you upwards of $14,000.
Yep.
In our lifetime.
In our lifetime.
And I think the important thing is, you know, for us who play games, it's definitely going to have an impact. But we can buy fewer games, play fewer games, like as sad as that would be, like what my heart really goes out to a lot of the Kickstarters, a lot of the indies who are going to be most impacted by this. And I think especially people who have funded Kickstarters, who have not started production yet, you know, like a lot of them don't have the margins for an extra 25%.
Now their production and shipping costs just went up 25%, and they can't do anything about it.
Well, I mean, it's the same problem that a lot of them were facing when they would charge shipping as part of the campaign, and then they wouldn't ship until years later, and in the intervening time, the cost of shipping had gone up. That hit a lot of Kickstarters really hard, and that's why, in case people are curious, why many Kickstarters will charge shipping separately and later after the campaign to keep that cost accurate. And, you know, that's a frustrating inconvenience, but
On
it's
both
kinda,
parties counts, for both for the people running the
Yep.
Kickstarter and for the people
'Cause it's
receiving the
hard.
items.
It's hard to go back and be like, hey, I know you just paid a lot of money, but can you give us more, or else we're gonna run into.
Or else you don't get your stuff.
Yeah.
So so that's the tough spot that shipping was in, and this, in some senses, is even worse because it's an unfortunate situation, particularly for those folks who have Kickstarters that are in progress.
Yeah, and people look at it and they say, oh, do you not do research? Do you not know how to run a business? But a lot, like something like this comes out of left field.
Yep.
You can't really predict that.
Yep.
No.
And most of the Kickstarters tend to get really excited and don't have a big cushion to absorb something like this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Board games in general are not particularly high margin, but a lot of almost in particular, the runaway Kickstarter successes tend to not have a particularly big margin to deal with.
I will say, though, I mean, there was, I guess, a little bit of a silver lining. So we had talked about potential things they could do, like there is some production for cards and board games in the U.S. People can transition. They said that places that, like pubs and bars that make a lot of their money from renting games, or from having people come and play the games there, if people aren't buying as many games, that could potentially be more of a thing. Although for your friendly local game store, it could potentially be a hit. You know, if their product prices go up, then that could be a little bit of sticker shock.
Well,
for
there's no way not to pass that kind of a tariff onto the customer in the long run. It's so big.
Yeah.
It's a very.
You know, if it was like a 2% tax, yes, possibly the retailer, depending on the strength of their business, could eat that cost and just keep their prices the same. But when you're talking about something raising the price that much, there is just no way we're not going to be paying.
Yeah.
And so there's a couple things to keep in mind. Like a tariff is just it's a tax on imports paid by the importer. And that cost is going to have to get kind of trickled down throughout the whole kind of the business cycle of that. Yeah. And I don't think that it will automatically translate into a 25% increase in the final cost of the game, because I believe it's probably going to be like a 25% on like the
it's like a per component
wholesale
kind of thing.
So like I think it depends. I don't know. Like we're obviously not experts. We don't know the details.
No.
But like it's not going to translate to a direct 25%, but it is going to have a huge impact on the cash flow for all these companies that are involved.
Yeah.
Whether from the publishers, through the distributors, through the retailers, and that is going to have a trickle to affect stuff that's already been imported, to just so that they can make the money to import the stuff that they need to sell to continue operation. It's really unfortunate to see, basically.
Yeah.
And there was some confusion at first about whether this would be just board games and dice, or whether it would apply to miniatures and role-playing games as well. It seems like it will apply to everything. So I think the only thing it won't apply to are those things that are printed, in the U.S. or elsewhere, not in China.
Yeah.
And like I will know, like you say, like I support industry in our country, and I think it's a good thing to support jobs. But we just don't have the capacity for a lot of things like this. And I think a great example, something that we've talked about, I think at one point, is the Splotter games. Like great games, they produce them locally. I think it's in Germany. I could be wrong in there, but like in Europe, they produce these games, and they're known for having that higher price tag. So it's just like, even if people do switch over to production, it's going to be more than 25%. So it's kind of a tricky situation.
The U.S. does have a greater capacity to kind of print cards and books and stuff like that than we have in previous years. Like I think
Because so many newspapers went out of business, we have all these presses available.
Yeah, we do.
I wouldn't think that might actually
That
be
might
it.
actually be.
But I know that Magic has done a lot to kind of increase their capacity kind of around different regions to handle distribution and leaks and stuff like that. I know that there's been more and more kind of relatively small press board game manufacturers in the U.S. And I know that like Print on Demand has some stuff in the U.S. So like that's the interesting thing is, will this make print on demand more competitive?
Yeah.
If the price for stuff that's printed off-site or offset printing is increased?
If they're charging you for printing overseas and then shipping it here, and they're charging you that much extra, it's going to print on demand is going to be the way to go.
So it'll be really interesting to see, but it's one of those like, may you live in interesting times kind of interesting.
I wonder if this will also reflect on the recycling industry here, because they have so many plastics and papers and such. So if they're going to be in-house United States, maybe board games can start looking at.
So oddly enough, that does tie into another thing with China, in that I I don't know what the current status is, but I remember hearing a news report that China was refusing, because China, I think, is actually the market for a lot of recyclable materials.
Yes.
They had started to refuse a lot of U.S. recycling because we don't sort and separate our recycling properly.
Yep.
And so it was too low quality for them to want to get. Like, I know that was a Washington State thing for a little while, try to figure out where to send our recycling. So
They only want the good garbage.
shockingly enough, in a global world, there is a whole lot of interconnected pieces.
Yep.
Who would have thunk it?
Yeah.
So the takeaway is freak out, call your representatives, and continue to freak out.
And if you're going to get involved in anything political based on the fact that a board game is going to go up in price, there are plenty of other issues you can call your representatives about too regarding equality in just about every industry we have.
Maybe this could be your gateway drug into political action.
Political intrigue.
If it gets you going, right? Like.
Speaking of which, have you ever been really into a miniatures game and just thought, I really, really wish I had a whole action figure set of these things?
Apparently me.
You have. Tell me all about this,
Oh,
Gary.
really?
So this news report, actually, I was more excited about when I misunderstood it. But the real news report is that Bandai and Games Workshop are partnering together to produce an action figure line of Space Marines.
So Bandai being the toy company, and plus they've got the Power Rangers behind them.
Yep.
They've been around for years and years.
Like Bandai is a powerhouse, obviously.
Yeah.
So, they're an extremely experienced toy manufacturer, and they're apparently going to be producing 7-inch tall action figures. I guess they're starting with a Primaris Space Marine, who looks pretty cool. I'll get real excited when they get around to some Chaos Space Marines, and some Nurgle and stuff like that. Some Death Guard would be great.
Anything Nurgle.
Horus
basically.
Heresy.
I mean,
Sure,
what
sure.
really struck me about this was, is there a market? Like, because I've seen some of these things,
Yes.
like the
Well, you know-
Warhammer Monopoly, Warhammer Munchkin. Like, who are buying?
Warhammer fans.
Warhammer fans.
Or actually, for some of those things, I think it's the friends of Warhammer fans who
Oh, well,
think
yeah,
Warhammer
right?
fan wants
This
it.
is like, I'm a camera person, so people just buy me random camera stuff, right? It's like, oh, you're into this thing. This is a thing from that you probably maybe don't have. or
Yeah,
have
no, that same
another.
thing happens to me. I'm an actor. I randomly get sent job applications for restaurants.
There.
Well, that's just kind of the nerd way you deal with things.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
I have a friend who likes pugs. Guess what? We will now purchase him a pug thing every time we see it until he says, fine, I hate pugs.
Yeah, yeah.
So
yeah.
maybe it's just an intervention and everyone is trying to help cure Warhammer fans over there. Anyway.
Of their excitement.
If there was a way to cure Warhammer fans, I think we would have found a way to do it by now.
Yeah.
The top minds are on it. So we don't have a ton of details. We've seen some shots of the Primaris Marines and things like that.
They'll be posable.
Yep. So they seem to be many points of articulation.
They would have to in order to be action figures.
Yes.
Yes.
Emma.
Versus-
Right.
You knew
okay,
that.
I made the point when we were going over the notes, like, oh, aren't Warhammer figures already action figures? Apparently.
Posable is how you gotta have action.
See,
pose.
I'm gonna go on Wikipedia. I'm gonna find action figures that don't move. I'm gonna be like, I don't know what they call those. Or what about like the little plastic army men? Are those not?
well, they still move like this.
Those are usually figurines.
Yeah.
That's real.
It seems like a very fine line.
You sound like we're trying to
So
trick
hold
you,
on,
but I
let me
promise
get
you
this
we are
straight.
not.
You are shocked to find a arbitrary thin line in categorizing something in a nerd hobby? Really?
posable
Yes.
and painted.
Action.
Presumably,
Action.
yes. So,
Yeah.
I'm excited because I used to love G.I. Joes as a kid. These seem really cool.
7 inches is big for an action figure nowadays,
It is.
too.
So the funny thing was, though, when I first saw this headline, I think I just saw Games Workshop and Bandai and just didn't read the rest of it, and came to the conclusion that Bandai was going to produce Gunpla kits for Warhammer properties. And in case anybody's not familiar with that, it's like
Gunpla?
Yeah, Gunpla is
Gunpla.
like Gundam play,
Gundam.
and it's the
You get to customize your
Yep.
own Gundam and assemble it.
No, I mean, it sounds really cool, but when you call it something like
Yep.
Gunpla,
Gunpla.
I think of these weird, like, subgenres of gaming that I don't necessarily want to delve into.
like, I don't
No,
know
it's
what to
just
go to
basically
there.
the figurine. You don't even really have to be a fan of the anime
Yeah.
to be in.
Oh, no, I'm all about giant robots.
Okay.
I'm
So I was excited just because it seems like a really hard dive into the hobby aspect of it, and I was excited to see that. So maybe Bandai will still do that, but that was what I initially thought the headline was.
Warhammer already lives in the like hardcore.
Yeah.
But
Like
this is
they're already in that
But
side.
this is a different way to do it.
Yeah, this is a way for them to do it and actually get people interested who don't want to like buy and paint.
Yeah, for the accessibility of it.
Yeah,
just
it's like,
being able to
hey,
grab
action
this
figures.
and-
Yeah, but
Hey, Space Marines are cool. I want to buy an army of Space Marines.
But this
even
is
if
a
you don't know
mega
what it
space
is.
marine. They're not just normal space marines.
yeah, if they let you play the Mega Space Marines that
Oh
were
my gosh.
posable in the
Can I
Warhammer
put
game,
it in my army and be like, this one's big?
No,
they
it's
would
better.
never let you
Hold on,
because
hold
that
on,
would be
hold on.
fun.
Hold on. But it occurs to me
Rah, rah, rah.
that Kill Team uses few enough figures that you could scale it up. Because if you can just figure out the ratio to go from
Yeah.
28 millimeter, 32 millimeter to 7 inches, you could just scale it all up, and people could buy the action figures and play Kill Team with the action
That
figures.
seems like I've known some Warhammer players, like they have like, you know, upwards of $3,000 worth of figurines for their wars.
For their
I know.
small
Yeah.
But that's
collection.
why I'm saying
Yeah.
Kill Team, you'll need like 12 guys.
That
You
seems
buy
heavy
5.
though.
There.
Just
I say we do it.
Carry them around. Yeah.
I say we do it.
We do it right here. I want them just to like play on the table. So when we're talking,
So
just
do
be
we,
like,
when they come out,
Yeah,
we get,
why don't
we
we just
get
skip the
one
rest of the
our
show, get a
own.
couple of these action figures.
Yeah,
I'll
So-
break out some
yep.
G.I. Joes and some Ninja Turtles, and we can just do this right now.
So what we're saying is,
love it.
Bandai, please send us these so we
Yeah,
can play
yeah,
with them.
Bandai, please.
we will
Great.
show them off.
We
talk
will
about
play with them
Yeah.
and role play the
Yeah.
characters.
And
We
they'll
will
make
Gundam
out.
play them.
We will Gundam play.
We will
them.
also LARP along
Yeah, no,
with
that
it.
still it
just
still sounds weird when you say it. Gunpla.
kidding. It's a huge community.
Sounds like a device of some sort. I'm not interested.
But yes,
So is that where we are?
That is
We're
where
living
we
in
are.
action figure land.
action
Yeah.
figures.
We're living in the promise of action figure land.
The promise
In our
of
minds.
action figure land.
In our dreams.
Oh well,
So as long as we don't have any other Warhammer news for the
Oh,
day,
we
we'll
do.
probably be fine. What?
we do happen to have. So for those who might be interested, in Warhammer news or Games Workshop news. So I don't know if you've been noticing that some of the publishers that used to be Ulysses, that used to publish all the Warhammer 40K RPG books, no longer have that. They're actually being transferred to Cubicle 7. That, if you're inside in the have been really big in the Warhammer fantasy role-playing world. They've gotten a lot of street cred in having quality stuff. So they're going to be republishing the whole Wrath and Glory, which is trying to take all of Warhammer and put it in one single book.
It seems like a lot.
It's a lot, but at the same time, like this is going to be in good hands and people who do respect the Warhammer universe, the Warhammer gaming, like they revitalized the World of Warcraft fantasy role playing, like I mentioned earlier. And so hopefully the next book will have less spelling errors and be out in time.
So that was a problem with the last one. They
had a bit.
They didn't
Just-
bother proofreading it before they put it out to the public.
I mean, I can understand. I hardly proofread myself, but yeah.
You're also not a publisher.
I'm not a publisher, but yes, there was a little bit of issues.
Yeah.
It seemed like they had some like production bottlenecks as well.
Yes.
So we don't know why this change was made, but it seemed like Games Workshop had a pretty good relationship with Cubicle 7 because again, they've revitalized the classic Warhammer Fantasy roleplay.
Yeah.
But they're also publishing the Age of Sigmar role-playing game. So it could have just been that they want to consolidate that. It could have been. Ulysses Spiel seemed to have some pipeline like production issues.
Ulysses Spiel? Mm-hmm. Who's that?
That is the old publisher for Wrath and Glory. Sorry.
No, it's okay. I like to know these things, so when I hear them
So-
in the future, I can put them out of
So
my head as
Ulysses
well.
Spiel had been publishing it,
Yes.
and now Cubicle 7 will, and it may have simply been because Ulysses Spiel needed more help with it.
Yeah.
Because they're still publishing the German version.
Right.
So it doesn't seem like Games Workshop wanted to completely sever that relationship, unless there's something more complicated going on. But it may have just been that they were not able to handle the demand or the timeline or the pace of the English release, at least.
Because
Man,
Warhammer
so much
really
for that
is that
famed
popular.
German efficiency.
They couldn't keep up.
See, I'm hoping that's the case, and I'm hoping that Ulysses Spiel will get more help because they also have a number of other licenses. Like they did the Torg RPG that was up on Kickstarter very recently.
Right.
That was very successful. Most importantly to me, they have the Fading Suns RPG, which honestly is basically Warhammer with the serial numbers filed off the role-playing game. And hopefully that will come out soon. So I'm really hoping that this will just kind of allow Ulysses Spiel to focus on some of the stuff some of the other projects they had going, and it'll give Wrath and Glory kind of a better shot at being successful, I hope.
Yeah.
Ooh, non-infringing conflict bludgeon. It's like Warhammer, but conflict.
Yep.
Conflict bludgeon.
We'll see how that works out for you.
See what you did there. It'll work.
Yeah.
I believe in you.
Yeah.
No, and it's also cool that they're giving like Cubicle 7 a chance to like, to hopefully expand their publishing range as well.
Yeah.
Well, Cubicle 7 actually has a bunch of really gorgeous games because they've been doing, the Warhammer Fantasy Battles, obviously, but they also have been doing the One Ring role-playing game and the Adventures in Middle-earth 5th edition versions of that. But like, the One Ring role-playing game is one of those role-playing games that's just absolutely gorgeous. And if you are a fan of Lord of the Rings, it's great. It's gorgeous. It's super detailed. It's wonderful production values. So them bringing that talent to Wrath and Glory should be exciting.
Yeah, and they also made the traveling system between like the One Ring actually exciting.
Yes. Yeah.
So you're not just 2 hours later.
Well, I still remember we played the One Ring like briefly because our group likes to kind of rotate through different games.
Yeah.
And we had a very Tolkien-esque scene of like sitting and eating some snacks and singing a couple songs, and it was like totally fun and part of like the mechanics to do that.
Yeah,
and it was 100%
but then 3
out of a
sessions
Tolkien
later,
fan.
when you're still talking to Tom Bombadil, you're like, hey, let's just fight something.
It's not all about fighting.
It's
Sometimes
no,
you
but
drink your tea.
if you've been talking to
and
the
that's what
same
you want.
chatty dude for 3 sessions, it's time to fight something. Probably the chatty dude.
Oh. Yeah.
Just saying.
Just saying.
I mean, Tom Bombadil will wreck you. Let's just be clear. So.
He would wreck me, but if I was Aragorn, I think I'd have a shot.
He's kind of like the god of time and space or something.
Are we really going to play Super Fight here with Lord of the Rings characters?
As long
Is that what's gonna
as we
happen?
mix it with characters from other IPs, I'm fine with it.
Yeah.
We'll just do Ultimate Battle.
We'll have that episode someday.
Yeah.
In the meantime,
Look
let's
forward
get
to it.
more classic. I mean, I like all this Lord of the Rings stuff and this Warhammer stuff, but when I think of role-playing games, I think of one game, and that game
Riffs.
is yes.
Wait, sorry.
No, that game is Dungeons and Dragons. If only they had something going on today at 2 p.m. They do?
They do.
What? That's right. Today is the day. The D&D Live 2019 The Descent is going to be streaming at 2 p.m. Pacific time. That's just a couple short hours after our show is over, so make sure you check it out. The Stream of Many Eyes has been very, very popular the last couple of years because it basically tells us what is going to happen in D&D for the whole year.
New books.
And
Seems like a big
that's
deal.
right. We got new books coming out. We got new. More importantly, we've got a large overarching storyline, which D&D has been delving into the last couple of years, which is kind of fun. It reminds me of like when they do a new Magic release, the whole story changes.
Very, very similar to that. That's true.
It's almost as if the companies are the same. But it was actually a really good. It's a good way to latch onto it. I think D&D did the right thing by kind of taking that model because it's made D&D very exciting for people who who maybe picked up the core books when it came out and have played a couple of times.
I think it works really, really well with how they've set up 5th edition.
Yeah.
Where they want to have this kind of like simple, focused kind of core bit of rules, and they might have a couple optional rules here and there that you might play with, but it seems they really want to keep the rules relatively clear and then have very strong thematic adventures they release on a regular basis to kind of have everybody play through it together and have a bit of a shared experience.
Yeah.
So the Stream of Many Eyes is where they kind of kick that off. They launch the storyline, they kind of set the tone, they play around with it, they have a lot of tons of different streaming celebrities come out.
Everybody who plays D&D who's famous is going to be there this week, pretty much. Maybe not Vin Diesel, but
Not everybody else. Not us.
Yeah, none of us, which is weird.
Yep, they're missing out on a golden opportunity there.
Right, we are available for bookings. Just letting you know.
You mentioned
That's
over
the thing.
the weekend too, so it starts at 2, but it goes all
weekend.
all weekend long, live streaming, in-person events too. Like at the studio, they're doing stuff. I don't know if that's open to the public.
They had tickets
Okay, so
available
it's-
for it,
I
but
think
they
you can
were.
watch it.
I think they were really expensive and they sold out.
Oh well, yeah.
It's a live studio.
That's how that goes.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's an audience for the streams. I think that like you get to kind of hang out with the experience.
Yeah.
And then they have GMs who are running games for you as well. So
Like that you're waiting outside of the studio having to be quiet while you're watching. You can't laugh at any of the funny stuff. It's great.
I think it's kind of like a mini focused con exclusive experience. Kind of
It feels very convention-like in so many ways because we've got so many special guests. And a little bit of, I mean, there's something to dig into here, simply because what are they putting out this year? I mean, we're going to find out, and we've all got maybe some
so
ideas.
the hint so far is like it's the Descent, and there's a blindfolded like Archon Angel Deva thing, and there's like some demonic hands reaching up towards it. And I think people figured out that the name of the file on the website was Zariel. Zariel is the fallen angel.
One of the Lords of the Nine.
Yep, who is ruling Avernus now, I think, in the lore. So this seems very plainer.
Well,
seems very blood-war-y.
It could be as simple as a good versus evil, heaven versus hell kind of story, or
Heaven or hell, fight!
Fight. Doom.
Finish him.
Or we could be delving into maybe some Planescape. Anyone?
Maybe.
I got my fingers crossed.
It could happen. It could happen.
I think that's what everybody's like. Yes, give me.
Oh, I love Planescape. It was my favorite.
Planescape and Dark Sun are the two things I just unabashedly love.
See, I unabashedly love Dark Sun until I have to play it, and then I'm not such a huge fan. Also, a lot of the stuff is dumb in it. But
it's D&D.
So Spelljammer. Yeah.
Way dumb.
So do we? Does anyone remember what the last year's was? What the story arc for the release was, or the big thing? That
Was
they
it last
had?
year the Tomb of Annihilation?
Yes, I think it was the Tomb of Annihilation. So that could be in contrast, right, for something that's a little bit more like traditional dungeony, and then to come out to this like crazy plain heaven and hell, like some of the stories that I've read from like being in like just like, well, we're in hell now, and you're talking about just the demons, not necessarily fighting the demons, like it just happens to be there. Like I think that's a really cool flavor. I would love to see that.
I think last year was Tomb of Annihilation and Dragon Heist. I think Dragon Heist.
Dragon
Heist might have been actually last year.
Dragon Heist is so cool.
Because I think Tomb was the year before. But like, if you look at like the Stream of Many Eyes from last year, I think it was Dragon Heist.
Yeah.
And they had done a whole set for Waterdeep, and they had done like they had people in costumes, and they were dressing up as some of the iconic characters, and it was a really like cool production.
Yeah.
So the stream is definitely something folks should watch if they are like at all into D&D.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, this has got everything, which is kind of cool.
Yeah.
Let's see. Anything else? Oh. No, nothing else I want to mention about that stream. But do watch it. Starts today at 2. There's going to be a lot of famous people there, so you can watch them play D&D. See, they're just as big a nerds as you are. They just make a lot more money.
Some of my friends are going to be on there.
Nice.
Oh, yeah?
Anybody you want to call out in particular?
Oh, well, Anna is one of the bigger hosts. I met her through CMON, the other contest I was in, and I don't know if Cypher and Brandon are going to be on there this year because they had one. They were on there last year, but I didn't get any updates because I know they've been busy. So I'm like,
well, busy usually means that they're up
busy.
to something.
I've been looking and stalking people on Twitter and being like, who's on there that I know?
Nice.
So, CMON is going to be opening a retail store in Singapore.
In Singapore, yes. If you guys are ever interested in this particular publisher, CMON, I thought it was actually CMON.
That's how it's spelled.
Yeah. But if you don't know, it's it stands for Cool Mini or Not. There used to be a whole website that like you could go in and vote like, hey, yay, nay, mini, yeah. And then they started to like expand. And grow bigger and bigger. So now this is their first actual retail store in their HQ, Singapore.
I like that they got big by basically just doing what women's magazines have been doing for 50 years.
Hot or not. Or like
Hot
the website.
Yeah,
Hot
it was
or not.
Hot or Not. It's pretty much what it was in terms of like, hey, you like this drow elf figurine or something like that.
Yeah.
And then
the hair.
it's funny that they actually had a huge con in Atlanta before they even had a retail store.
Yeah.
So that's a cool little thing. And if you guys are in Singapore, it should be opening in a couple hours. Singapore is like 15 hours ahead, so it is actually May 18th.
Yeah.
Right now, so it'll be open in a couple of hours, and you can get your hands on what they have
So
there.
somebody go there, check it out, and tell us how it is.
Yes, please.
The line is already forming. It won't get too long because if it does, they'll disperse it immediately.
It's an interesting choice. Like, I don't know of too many other publishers that have their own retail store. Usually there's this pretty strong barrier. There's like the distributors and the retail stores and the publishers, and there's this whole chain of command going on to get those board games into your hot little hands. But now to be opening it up, and Singapore too, you know, it's like we having our show here tend to be U.S. focused and on the U.S. market, but there must be a very big market in Singapore for these games as well.
Yeah.
Well,
For the minis.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's Games Workshop that obviously, you know, their retail kind of presence is integral with their overall business model.
Yeah.
And then Wizards for a long time had retail stores. They got into the retail store business, established a bunch, and then got out of it.
Did they? Wow, I totally missed that.
Oh yeah.
Oh no, that was a
they
thing.
had a lot all around.
Yeah.
But I can't really think of a whole lot of other publishers. I think Fantasy Flight. I think they have a store and an event location just at their HQ.
Yeah, yeah.
But there aren't a whole lot more who do that.
And with you mentioned Games Workshop and Wizards of the Coast, like they don't have any more.
Well,
like, are there
Games
some?
Workshop
There's Games Workshop still.
There's some. There's
No.
definitely
Yeah.
not as much as there
No,
used
Games
But you're not
Workshop
going to
is a
find a
lot
WotC
all
store
over the place.
anywhere nearby.
Yeah,
Um,
WotC stores no longer exist, but
Yeah.
Games Workshop, it's still like a very integral part of their thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's some stuff that's rolled into that. Like they're not obviously exclusive to their own stores.
Yeah,
but
yeah. I think it kind of came down and then back up again.
I think that the GW stores will rise and fall based on the popularity of the game, obviously.
yeah.
And I think right now the game is definitely on a rise up.
as we can see.
They just have to be careful not to open as many stores this time.
Yeah.
So, but like with CMON, it is really interesting. Like, is this a trend? Are they just going to open one kind of like Fantasy Flight? Are they going to open in the U.S.? Is it just to help serve the Singapore market? I mean, did Singapore not have a lot of other board game stores, and this was the best way to do it?
Yeah.
It's intriguing, and I'm really curious to see where it's going to go.
I could see. I mean, retail is definitely hard, but I could see Cool Mini or not. It is so popular. You know, anytime they put anything up on Kickstarter, it funds almost immediately. So having something in an urban center, I could see potentially being successful.
But yeah.
And it's a big, big city. I mean, there's
Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, that's an interesting question. Is Kickstarter in Singapore? Can you start a project from Singapore?
Yeah, one of the ones on the list is actually based in Singapore. I was like looking at the location, so one of them on
I
our
wonder.
list today.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it could just be new centralized hubs for everything,
Could be.
and you know, expanding that market. It's like, you know, Korea started with live streaming before the U.S.
Yeah.
and such like that. So it would be interesting. The Asian market is definitely a big ticket area because there's just a lot of people who like, you know, like computer cafes and such like that.
Yeah.
And you know, gaming is a bigger thing in
It's just
Asia.
Singapore is so much less like the rest of the Asian market in so many ways with the way that their infrastructure is set up, that it might be like the perfect.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
It might be perfect for them.
I guess we'll find out and see what CMON does with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Excited to see.
So we've got a D&D stream happening. We got a game store opening up in Singapore.
Speaking of retail,
Speaking of retail,
What's happening with retail?
what is happening with retail?
The Mox Boarding House Gauntlet charity stream.
That's what?
Oh.
is happening with retail. So if you happen to have multiple screens, like I don't want to say it's going to be tough competing. I think that we can all survive. But maybe like on your phone have the D&D, and then like on your laptop have the Mox charity stream, because this is going down this Sunday, all day long. It's going to be like a full day. It's a little bit like a Extra Life type of a thing, but all board game focused and specifically done by our local friendly local game store here, Mox Boarding House. And what's really cool about it is it's all board game competitions. So a lot of the stream charity events will be more video game focused, but for this one, it's all going to be live. It's going to be in person. I'm going to be one of the hosts.
Wait,
for
you can do
it.
board game competitions?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't realize they were competitive.
Kristen is so angry right now.
Compete. Well, so there's a lot of very high level like Catan tournaments. Like board games are known for having, and I'm something like Magic, obviously, like esports level.
Bring down the house with this Catan tournament.
But for these ones, the Mox Boarding House Gauntlet is known for picking some interesting games that are not necessarily usually played on the competitive circuit. So for this one in particular, it's going to be Parade, which is a old classic Alice in Wonderland themed game. Photosynthesis,
Very, very pretty.
competitive tree growing.
Ooh.
So if you want to grow trees better and shade the literal sun from your opponents, then this is a game for you. I actually played it recently, and it's very cutthroat. This, like all the tree games, tree growing games, like you plant that tree.
Have you been in the forest? It's very cutthroat.
Yes.
That's fair.
I mean, some invasive woods grow better. I'm a woodworker. I know these things.
Ooh.
Yeah, some invasive trees grow better.
See, I want to find out if your woodworking knowledge would give you a competitive advantage.
I
in photosynthesis.
wonder because
I don't want to know that.
do they also have the because I haven't seen the card game.
Yeah.
Do they also have the picture of the trees that you represent because
So the game is it's got a really good table presence, which I think makes it nice for streaming. So all of the trees are cardboard standees, like very big, like very beautiful ones, and you're growing it on the forest. And you put down the tree, and you're spending your light points that you got from blocking everyone's sun to make bigger trees and growing them over time. So the forest
you
really
choke
does
out everybody else under you because that's
Yeah,
how
see?
trees work.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So, in the spirit of that, this is a charity event.
Yeah.
Oh yes.
What charity,
okay.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
What charity is it supporting?
So the charity benefits El Centro de la Raza, which is a voice and a hub for a Latino community and immigrant community. So it's for a very good cause. It's also, one of the other cool things is all of the teams that are participating are from really big local game companies. So
Gen Con
Wizards-
has had a team in the past.
Gen Con has had one. Wizards of the Coast has a team. I believe Bungie, Monolith Games. There's definitely a lot of people
Does
there.
Mox have its own team?
I think that would be cheating.
Yeah, I feel like that would be like in the Olympics.
Yeah.
Like
Paizo's had a
home-
team in the
home
past.
team.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
they've actually won some of the more recent ones.
Yeah.
But
Actually, if you have the Olympics in Switzerland, you can still have a Swiss team.
No, I know, but I mean it's an advantage. That's why when the Olympics happen, they get to choose a specific game. That's why there was speed running in one competition because they actually had one of the professional speed runners in, I believe.
As opposed to the slow runners who are they're
Speed running is actually a thing.
competitive slow running though.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure it was a thing, but just the idea of speed running is like,
I'm actually kind
It's
of
like running
excited.
but faster.
Since China, I think, has taken over the Olympics, I think there's going to be like ping pong, Olympic
Oh
ping
man,
Oh,
that will be.
nice.
But that's going to be
Yeah.
awesome to watch.
Yeah.
Or to watch in slow motion.
So rounding out the
Yeah.
Mox Charity Gauntlet, there's also going to be, a lot of it's going to be this competitive gameplay, but there's going to be trivia and a secret surprise that's going to be very fun to watch. You should definitely tune into that, support charity,
well,
check
yeah,
it
you
out
should,
this Sunday.
you go to the website.
Yeah.
Because the spread of teams is both like tabletop industry and producers of games, but also video games. So it's a really nice kind of crossover of different nerd interest groups in Seattle all playing board games together to raise money for a local charity.
Yeah.
And that'd
So
be cool
check
too.
it out.
And it's a good cause. If you can't
Yeah.
watch, go ahead and look up the charity anyway. It might be
Yeah.
something you want to give money to.
Yeah. That'd be good cause. I think their goal is $70,000.
I
I
believe
don't
so.
recall, but yeah, sounds
Yeah.
about right.
Yeah.
I could use that too.
Yeah. Everybody
I
can
should
do
do a
that.
charity stream. Give me $70,000.
Speaking of things happening on Sunday, though, and explaining why Gen Con isn't part of the.
Oh,
Yeah,
the
there's a really good reason.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
We should mention that Gen Con event registration is opening up on Sunday.
On
Because
Sunday.
otherwise, we would have been there. We were there last year.
Yeah.
We would have been training, during lunch hours to try to figure out how to play these
Training
games.
montage.
We should see if we can go next year.
Well, if they can.
We'll have a
It's
table
a
takes.
conspiracy.
We'll
They
have a table
actually-
takes team.
Oh yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes. We'll see
Oh,
if we
yeah.
can do that.
We'll
That
see
would
if we
be
can
cool.
put our money where our mouth is.
Yeah.
But if you're going to Gen Con, Sunday is the day that you're going to be able to first buy tickets to events. So make sure that you have a badge and you've prepared your wish list and you have watched the video currently available in the video on demand on Twitch where
Yeah.
Jordan and I, and then we have another one where Kristen and I talk through that process and explain how it works.
And
So
then-
definitely check that out.
And then sign up for Gamers Live.
That too.
Yeah.
Just like you always do.
Yep.
I would mention, I think one of the things, especially first-time Gen Con attendees, like it actually took me a few years of going to Gen Con to really realize what the events were and to realize the importance of it. So you can definitely go to Gen Con, check out the exhibit hall, like play free play. There's a lot of stuff to do, but a lot of the richness of it, like if you want to play specific games, it's a great way to meet people there if you don't necessarily have a big group that you're going with. You can check out like shows like we're doing there, like TableTakes, all sorts of cool things.
Comedy
we're
shows,
doing a special
movie
episode of TableTakes.
screenings.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So-
all sorts of great stuff.
And a lot of that stuff will sell out. So if there's something in particular that you're really hoping to get done while you're there, then you should definitely
sign up as early as you can.
Exactly.
I don't know. And then also just big gaming conventions are also just really great that you can just sit down and meet somebody, especially because I don't look like it, but I'm a little introverted with meeting new people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think most of us are.
Yeah. That's common.
It's a common trait among our people.
But it's like if you get to play like Watch the Skies or something, when you have a protective flock around you, it's okay to just be like, ha and roll the dice.
First couple years there were really overwhelming for me, but I've it's become home away from home now.
Now you're a veteran.
Well, no, it's more like I've just like gotten a lot more comfortable around these particular 120,000 people.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're good folks. I know where to run now. I've got downtown Indy.
You got your escape routes planned?
Yep,
All
everything's.
your special spots.
Yep,
You
I
know
know
where to
the
eat.
shortcuts.
All the tastiest. Oh my gosh, bee coffee roasters. It's so good. I go there all the time. I'm dreaming of it now.
Is there an international district around there? Because that's where you get all the good food.
Oh no, they've got a steak and shake. That's pretty much gonna do it.
Oh, steak and shake.
So yeah, events. Gen Con.
Events. So that leaves me only really one more headline to talk about before we move on to other things. And this is really just a throwaway headline. I just think I love the idea that we've, like, the last few weeks had gaming scandals.
Yeah.
Some schadenfreude over here right now.
You are definitely the gossiper of this.
Oh, I love
Oh,
it.
my
Because
goodness.
it's just so trashy.
Well, this is because Christian was raised on soap operas.
Yes,
Yes.
I've said so many times. That's why my stories go the way they do. It's why every villain has an evil twin. Bethesda has been accused of plagiarism on a recent released tabletop adventure. And I wasn't going to even mention this, except that the Black Road, which supposedly it was plagiarized from, is a very, very popular D&D adventure. And I was looking at the side-by-side comparison of the flavor texts, and whoever this guy was that wrote the Bethesda adventure must have been on like the worst deadline ever and didn't realize he had to have it turned in the next day. Because he didn't change most of the words. He switched a couple of words that were synonymous with each other, and other than that, the flavor text is identical.
So the context is that Bethesda has a new expansion coming out. I think it's for Morrowind, or I think it's for Elder Scrolls.
It's for
Yeah,
Elder Scrolls.
So they have a new expansion coming out for the video game.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, so the Elsewhere expansion.
So to promote that, they released a tabletop adventure that was, I think, supposed to be set there or tied in there.
Yeah.
And it bears a striking resemblance to.
Oh man, I wish I would have brought in the excerpts because I could read them and the only difference is this one mentions like an elf and this one mentions a Khajiit, and
So it bears
That's the
a
difference.
striking resemblance to an Adventurers League adventure from 2016 that plenty of people have run, have played. So it's kind of surprising to see this filter out.
Yeah.
There is some incredibly adept thesaurus use, though. I will say some of the word swaps there. You're like,
oh, that does
wow.
mean the same thing.
Yeah.
It was
Vocabulary
lazy. It was
exercise.
so lazy and obvious, and there should be no question. Like, hey, this is strikingly similar. It's not. It's the frickin' same, guys.
Yep.
It's the same.
So that was quite the shock for the authors of that to see that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
Bethesda did take it down relatively quickly. but
Almost
I
immediately.
I don't think that we have seen a further response from them other than that they're looking into it. So I'm hoping that we'll get some kind of update as to like what actually happened and what steps are taken to resolve
Somebody's
the
got
situation.
him fired for
Yeah,
sure.
somebody better be getting fired for it because that's just unacceptable.
I feel like Bethesda's been kind of tripping on itself a bit.
Hey, longtime gamers have been borrowing things from other modules for a long time, but we don't have the audacity to try and publish them.
Well, but there's a huge difference between borrowing and there's a
And
huge difference between repurposing for your home campaign. And like, if you want to make an adventure that is directly inspired by and adapts to Black Road, that's fine. But this was like
Straight
not,
up,
This was not the content. This was the text.
Yeah.
There's a big difference between the two.
And the
think
content.
Copy paste.
It was both.
Shining light here, though, is because the fact that this is so dramatic. Like, it doesn't happen a lot in our industry. I think we should be thankful that, for the most part, creators do get credit for their work.
They do, but
Yes.
keep in mind that we have the internet now, so if you're plagiarizing, we will find out.
And we're nerds, so we're very focused.
Yeah, man,
on
we got nothing to do
details.
but like look at the things you've done
And
wrong.
Reddit's a thing that people very concentrate on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if we don't like your story, we'll tell you about it too. Consequently, I think we're going to be seeing a lot less Targaryen cosplay at Gen Con this year. Anyone? No? Okay, too soon? Sorry, guys. I guess it's time to move on to bundles then, which means I'm going to do some more talking right now.
Okay.
So here we go. This
Bundles.
week, the Bundle of Holding has the world's largest bundle. That's just what it's called. It's not really the largest bundle they've ever done.
It's a euphemism.
But yes,
Yeah.
Oh.
it is a euphemism. What it is 2 products, both the world's largest dungeon, which comes in at over 900 pages, something like, 1,600 encounters that'll bring you all the way from level 1 to level 15.
Yep.
It's gigantic. It was put out by AEG. And also, as part of this bundle, is the world's largest city. Over 750 pages. And it's basically about the same thing, but it's all of the civilized versions of the things that you fought in the 900-page dungeon book.
Have they actually measured it, though? Is it, measurable as the world's largest dungeon? Or is it just,
Well, I think it depends on.
or is it, the world's biggest hamburger or whatever? Like, every city has its own, world's biggest hot dog.
Well, I mean, if you're going off of
Quotes.
encounters or pages, I think this.
Yeah,
When
this
you
one
do
has
when
it.
you do hamburger and hot dog in
Hamburger.
quotes, I think you might be using them wrong.
Or the cities are.
Or the cities are.
Yeah.
Hamburger.
I actually did play
It's
the
usually
world's...
the world's largest that they put in the quotes.
You said you played the...
Oh, I played the world's largest dungeon. It was both the greatest god call I ever got, and also it was just because the DM was a bit different. So I made my god call because it was like I was a good character, and I saw a demon getting tortured, and I can't just have, even though he's a demon, I couldn't. Made my god call, but because I was playing a dude,
That's
I
how much
also
he's
got
legit, by the way.
a sex change at the same time. It was very weird because he didn't like me playing a dude, so he's like, "You made your god call, you're chosen, you get this cool armor sword, and now you're a chick." I was like, yeah. So
I feel like
I love it when
that's the world's largest unpack that we would have to do there with that
like,
GM.
Yeah, do you need to talk about
No,
this?
no,
'Cause
no.
we can
I mean,
talk about
it's
this.
great, but also very grindy of a system. I
Yeah.
won't lie,
Yeah.
and it's very it's not so much story driven as the DM will kill you,
Yeah, well,
and
yeah, like
there's a little salt.
This is definitely the thing that you get when you want to have a dungeon crawl never ending.
Yes.
Not probably what you want if you want to have a delicately crafted, immersive, and subtle story.
Yeah,
I would
yeah.
say. But there are other things in the bundle too.
Yes.
The second thing you said sounded lame.
There.
Yeah. I think, but this
And
one.
those are the things I like. I think it was just the way you said it.
Oh yeah. Keep in mind though, this is the second tier of the bundle.
Right.
The first
Yeah.
tier just kind of like they look.
The first tier is just like a bunch of AEG's third-party, third
Yeah.
edition D&D stuff that they didn't sell very well. That they're just like,
Here, have it.
here you
have
go,
it, have it.
here you go. We're not making this stuff anymore. And I probably shouldn't call it out like that, but I owned a good portion of these other books.
This bundle is what I would call the drinking from the fire hose bundle. I mean, like considering the price
Yes.
and considering how much you're getting, like
Yeah.
it's hard to argue you're not getting value for your money, but you are getting like a ton of D20 content.
Yes,
Yeah.
you
So
are.
that's like if you run a Pathfinder, if you're still running 3rd edition, this stuff is going to be slottable right away. But
Yes.
otherwise you'll need to adapt it a little bit. But you're
Yeah. It's
easy-
probably
it-
used to doing
The
that. by
5th edition
now.
is very, very easy to adapt to.
Yes. It's portable.
Right.
It's portable.
So I was amused that there's like in addition to these super crazy long dungeon things, there's the Ultimate Toolbox book, which is apparently just 400 pages of over 1,000 tables of stuff.
Just stuff.
So-
just tables
So
of stuff.
Like the thing is like that's not me, but I know there are DMs out there who just love rolling on random tables.
I know.
yeah.
I know a couple of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Here you
play with
go.
them anymore.
I don't think you can. I don't think you'll ever roll on all these tables.
min-maxers.
Yeah.
Oh,
as
I
they
don't mind.
say.
I don't mind min-maxers because I know what they're about from the very beginning. But the random tables people, I never trust because they're so chaotic.
Oh yeah.
It's like you walk in and there's a fork.
Min-maxers just want to be awesome for the least
Yeah.
amount of cost.
You see that carpet on the floor? Do you want to walk on the carpet?
I don't now.
Well, it just
what?
yeah, it reminds me of that player you have who always plays the Chaos Mage, and who always looks at you like, hey, can I roll on the random spell encounter table yet? So, if you want some of that old school 20, it's crazy now that we can call D20 old school, I guess.
We can though.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's been a while.
So, newsflash, time passes, and we're old now. So, there's a whole lot of that stuff in there. This bundle is definitely the fire hose bundle.
Yep.
So, hey, you want to drink from the fire hose? Grab this bundle.
Yeah.
It's available from Bundle of Holding. It's got the world's largest dungeon and the world's largest, I guess, city.
And the world's largest collection of random tables.
And maybe the world's largest hamburger.
And maybe,
Entirely-
well, in that
Yeah.
world's largest city, you can probably find the world's largest hamburger or fantasy gaming equivalent of hamburger, which I assume is just a whole pig.
I really hope that one of
With
those
bread.
With bread.
Yeah.
I hope that one of
Two
those
loaves of bread, one
thousands
pig.
of tables is what the town you have just visited has the world's largest of. Like what its local tourist attraction would
Tourist
be.
attraction, yeah.
That would be
Like
a
if they
really
have the
Yeah.
world's
dumb
largest
table.
horse, don't go see it if it's called the world's largest horse.
Okay.
Anyways.
Yeah.
So, which we got to move on to Kickstarters. We are
Yeah.
so running out of time. Let's see if you can do the Micro Machine guy
Oh no,
through all of
definitely
these.
not. No, we are going to give these Kickstarters the time that they merit. So,
So
Kickstarters
like
this week.
2.5 to 3.5 hours?
Yes.
Like that much?
Yep.
Right.
We're going to start off with
Oh.
18 Chesapeake.
Let's start with that one.
Choo choo.
18 Chesapeake has 3 days left, and this was designed as an introductory 18xx board game. Now, Emma, what are extremely popular with people these days? Trains. The answer is trains. Just say
Trains.
Trains.
Great. So this is a wonderful game to help introduce people to trains, like the train game. So 18xx is a whole subgenre of games.
Of
You know,
train games. They're
Yes.
all train
Yes.
games.
Well, yes.
Train adjacent.
Train
some of them.
tycoon. Thank
Yeah.
you very much.
So 18xx games are they have a very passionate following. There's a
Yeah.
whole bunch of them. They have a lot of variants. They're kind of infamous for having.
They're the reason that my grandfather wore those overalls his whole life.
Sure.
Yeah.
That seems reasonable.
Yeah.
You can blame them for that.
I do.
But they're kind of renowned for having these rules on top of them, like very complicated, like intricate experiences.
Yes.
So this project was specifically designed to be intro friendly in a 2.5-hour experience.
This is a weeknight
Yes.
game in 2.5 to 3.5 hours.
So I think relative to what the general board game community would call a newbie-friendly introductory on-ramp, this may be complicated, but relative to the 18xx kind of genre, this is trying to help, I think, get existing board gamers, like maybe
Yeah.
Euro board gamers, pull them a little bit into that, because it seems to be the designer was trying to focus on
It's
like
the
core
Kickstarter that says,
mechanics.
no, we swear, trains are super fun, guys.
Yep.
Would you say this is a way for Eurogamers to tunnel into this
Sure.
new
Uh-huh.
genre?
Yep.
No,
They
there was
could-
already a way for gamers to to dip their toe into the wild world of trains. It was called word problems in math class in 3rd grade.
They could get on the train.
Yeah. Get on the train.
Get on the train.
Toot
So-
that horn.
For something completely different,
Yes.
we have Reroll, which is like an app, website, character sheet, character creator, D&D kind of thing. But the key thing that really grabbed me and that just looks awesome is it has this pixel art component to it where you kind of play pixel paper doll with your character.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
and you
Yeah.
make your avatar.
You can
and
make
he's
your
a video
avatar.
game character,
Yep.
and it's
And
cool.
it looks like really neat pixel art style.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
Over
I don't know
hundreds of
how
combinations.
I don't know how the mechanics of this are going to compare to say D&D Beyond or something like that. But just from the ability to make your character in cool pixel art, it's just really neat.
I mean, let's be honest. That's what 90% of us play any of these digital role-playing games for. Even like my Xbox avatar. Like I've spent more time making my Xbox avatar than I have playing on the Xbox.
So you're the reason.
I
People like you are the reason I have to deal with an Xbox avatar in my Xbox.
I didn't
hate it.
I did not watch wrestling for like 15 years, but I still bought the wrestling game every single year when it came out because I could make my own wrestler on
Yeah.
it. I like
Oh,
to
yeah,
play
there's
dress
a
up
lot.
with the guy. That's my thing.
Well, character creation nowadays
I need
is
help.
like even for Mortal Kombat games,
Yeah.
you can make it so like Princess Elsa fights Olaf or something like that. It's all fun when you get to create
Well, somebody was talking in chats talking about, you know, they're playing with their outfits in Destiny. Like I can certainly understand that.
World of Warcraft, like the whole transmogrify.
It's why Sunset Overdrive will forever be in my top 10 game list.
Yeah.
Well, so this you know, Kickstarter is for an app. Their stretch goals have funded a website for it. It's funded Roll20 integration for tokens. They have a shareable link to characters, which I thought was really cute.
That's
so
actually
when you
a really
have
big thing.
played around and made your super cool thing, you can link to it.
And share it.
There's a lot of interesting stuff in there. And then one of the tiers I thought was worth calling out is $100 for commissioned pixel art of your character. So it's neat. Like there's a lot of pixel art that I really love the style of, and it's neat to see some of that kind of brought to D&D.
Can I make him do the little Final Fantasy level updates?
Probably yes.
Because that's all I really wanted. Jumping up and down and doing full spins with your arms up in the air.
I do want to call out one of the core experiences. Like I played D&D on Roll20 for my first time, and they're like, well, you got to find the picture, the avatar for your character. So you Google like, especially for the female characters of like, you know,
best of luck.
Barbarian woman or whatever. And I mean, there's some good stuff on there, but some potentially problematic stuff.
If you add in with clothes, you'll get better results.
Well, turn on safe search is a very important part. But just finding, like, does this character embody what I'm looking for from this thing? And there is generic fantasy art, you know, so it's, like, really cool to have this, be able to, like, customize and get into your character more, especially for a new player.
The pixel art seems to be, you know, you pick your character, you kind of pick the race, you pick some elements of the build, and then you just put equipment on them and kind of swap things around to see what it looks like. So you kind of end up discovering your character based on what you have, as opposed to trying to find a picture and then making a character to match that, which is neat.
Yeah.
So the next Kickstarter is Cultist Storm, a Cthulhu Mythos board game inspired by H.P. Lovecraft, which seems a little redundant to me, but this is one of those board games when you decide that you really want more story in your game, and you want to go explore all the Lovecraftian things with little bits of flash fiction everywhere. Maybe you even, in this campaign, want to have a whole hardcover book of just the fiction set aside. Like, this is a extremely straight-faced, serious story board game of fighting the Lovecraftian mythos.
Yeah.
But it seems like kind of a slightly interesting take on it.
Yeah.
And you just go to the site and see how much stuff they have there, because it's like boxes and books and just like, I know they're pulling in like very experienced writers for this, so
like
if you like Cthulhu, this is
if you like Cthulhu, then you're just like the steampunk people were 5 years ago.
So like in a lot of senses, this is the project kind of seems to be a checklist of things you do when you're making a Lovecraftian board game. But the emphasis on story and their acknowledgement that there are a lot of Cthulhu board games out there make it stand out to me a little bit more. Again, particularly because they have...
Lovecraft also focused on story because his board game wasn't as important to him. Oh, wait. Turns out these were all books.
Yeah, they're all books.
Now they're just all board games.
Yeah, so it's the board game based on it's the book based on the board game that was based on the book.
Yeah, this is the board game that's based on the board game that was based on the book that was based on the board game.
How many Inception levels are we at now?
I don't know, but I know it takes 1,000 years.
Yeah.
And Inception levels. We're going to get a trifecta here, don't worry.
I know. I know we are.
So the next project is also Cthulhu themed. This has 4 days left, and it is Fate of Cthulhu. So this is a role-playing game book. Christian, have you ever wanted to play Terminator 2 or 12 Monkeys but Cthulhu?
Yes.
Now you can.
I can.
Because that is literally...
I always could. I have rifts.
Well, because, the thing is you could make Rifts the Apocalypse here. But the premise of this role-playing supplement for Fate is you are one-way time travelers from a future that has gone horribly wrong, sent back in time to prevent that future. So
that's a Netflix series, I'm pretty sure.
Probably that too,
Probably.
like half of them.
So if you want to, you could have the apocalypse be rifts, and you're sent back in time to stop the rifts. But I feel like that would take away a lot of the rifts.
Right. We need the Cthulhu stuff. I got it.
So, but this
they all have to be in airships and wear goggles.
This I find really interesting because it's Fate and giving sanity rules and corruption rules and time travel paradox rules to Fate. And those are all good.
Yeah.
But then also it takes a different way of engaging with the Cthulhu mythos. So instead of playing investigators who are slowly finding out about this thing and maybe going crazy, you start off fully aware of at least some of the bad stuff that's going to happen, sent back in time to deal with it. So I feel like instead of, it's kind of like when you play D&D, you can start with, well, you're in the pub and you're hired to go kill rats. Like, it's a very classic thing that's almost like the, well, you're a professor and you find a weird book on your shelf for Cthulhu, right?
Yeah.
So this one, instead of saying, hey,
I've got the mad god in my basement. I need you to go take care of it.
Yeah, exactly. So,
Cool.
so this is almost like the
Spray.
Cthulhu version of, instead of starting off like low level and uninformed, you're not necessarily high level, but you know what the stakes are immediately. There's no, well, maybe the rational thing to do, but like you came through time to stop madness, so get on with it.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but is this like the Reddit threads or whatever that like you're sent back in time 200 years with a cell phone? Like, how do you conquer the world? Like, most of us would probably not succeed. So you're sent back and you have like none of your technology, and you're like, Elder God, scary insanity.
Yeah, especially.
Listen to me. I'm not crazy.
I'm not on
It's gonna
drugs.
work
I
out
swear.
The thing is, if you know things, you don't mess with the Cthulhu stuff, I think. You know, like that
Yeah.
just
You
seems
like
like common
build a
sense.
spaceship and then just
It's like, yes, I'm going slowly mad, but I'm gaining so much power.
Well, I think in here you're willing to sacrifice yourself to stop.
Oh, yeah,
noble
that's-
people.
There-
No, okay, I've heard of them.
Yeah.
Every now and then you play a
Hero
game like
types,
that. Yep.
eh?
Eh.
But speaking of Cthulhu,
Oh, another thing about
our
Cthulhu?
third
What? We
Cthulhu
can't possibly
trifecta,
have 3 Cthulhu products in one show.
It's a
3 Cthulhu products in
You're
the
right.
hobby game industry, sir.
Whoa.
Gosh.
It is clearly an underserved market.
Yeah.
But we have a new project. Oh, I'm sorry. Actually, Fate of Cthulhu is actually from Evil Hat
Evil Hat
directly.
game.
Even-
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, this is not some random other publisher who's playing with
This isn't just like hacked Fate.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
real Fate.
Yep. This
It's
is
actual
Fate
fate.
from the source. The source of fate.
The nice part about this is you can climb on Cthulhu all the way to the top when he comes out of the ocean and jump off of Cthulhu onto some concrete and be fine because there's no falling damage.
Huh.
And
Do
the
I
GM
have to-
is incapable
do
of
I-
making a ruling outside of the rules. Yes,
Do I to test a little bit of salt and vinegar?
probably.
Then-
Probably. So, taking that and moving on, we have the Cthulhu alphabet, which I believe is from Goodman Games.
Which is a children's book.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, yeah.
You joke, but I'm pretty sure there actually is a children's book
There
that
is
is
actually.
the ABCs of Cthulhu
Yeah.
for children with Cthulhu stuff. This is not
This
that.
is the Cthulhu alphabet. It's like for the
Yes.
This is for
second
grown-ups
grade.
trying to learn to read for the
Yep.
first time, but
Gosh.
also huge fans of Lovecraft.
This is more like
but-
this is more like encyclopedic almost. So for each letter of the alphabet, they take some sort of Cthulhu thing. This is like a system agnostic like role-playing game supplement. It's inspirational kind of thing. So for each letter, they take some sort of Cthulhu thing. They give you some little bit of backstory for it, and then there's a bunch of like random tables for it.
Is
Like,
M for madness?
Probably. And then the random table could be something like different types of mental disorders that you might be afflicted by if you get too exposed to the mythos or something like that.
You know,
Yeah.
the nice thing about the Cthulhu universe is, though, usually for these alphabet books, X, Y, and Z are very difficult, but for Cthulhu, those are probably the easiest letters.
Yep.
The easiest.
Those are like the 3 main dudes.
Yeah, they're like, we have everything for X, we have nothing for E. I don't know what to do.
So if you're running an RPG with some Cthulhu stuff and you want some inspiration for kind of different directions maybe to take things in, it seems like that's what this is for.
Gosh, it's good that people finally have some,
Finally
some,
have some
there's
representation
some
of
resources
mythos.
they can draw off of if they are interested in the whole Cthulhu mythos.
Oh man.
Speaking of things you love, the next project is the Devil May Cry board game. So you can finally get points for your style.
Yes.
Style shooting.
Wait. Devil
Wait.
May Cry, The Bloody Palace.
Yep.
Style.
So this is a big Kickstarter. It's from Steamforged, I believe. Are you wrapping yourself up in your cable?
I
over there?
did. I realized
I love
that
it,
I did
yeah.
it. I was with style though, so I get extra
Yeah,
points.
yeah.
Then
the,
you had to
the
unwrap
dismount
yourself,
counts,
though.
though.
No, but I did it with extra style.
Okay.
We need a judge.
Okay, that was pretty
See,
good.
see,
Yeah, the
see?
Russian judge gives a 3.
Do you get an? What's the ranking on that? S.
S is the
S.
highest.
S
Yep.
is the
S
highest.
is-
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
S
No.
is always
Yeah,
the
it's
highest.
That was not an S.
I give it an S.
Thank you.
I give it a B plus. Dismount counts. I'm telling you, you got to stick that landing every
true.
single time. So it's a,
Speaking of the Olympics.
So this is a game about devils, crying
Nope.
demons. Are
No.
they
Nope.
demons?
Okay, so with the title like
it's about dudes with no shirts, wearing trench coats, and carrying swords.
although
But there's guns too. Okay,
but
guys.
with the mention of Planescape previously and now Devil May Cry makes I kind of want someone to make a game that is about demons coming to terms with their relationships and going to therapy.
Oh,
called
God.
Devil May Cry.
Oh gosh, I'm gonna make notes.
Anyway,
about this.
that's a free
I'm
one.
on
You
it.
can
Plus,
take
there's
that.
a lot of family drama in there too, fathers and brothers.
Yep, see?
And
See? There's a whole lot to unpack. But anyway, the board game Devil May Cry: The Bloody Palace from Steamforged has 5 days left, and it is a capital K, capital B Kickstarter board game. There are minis, dice, tokens,
lots of minis.
lots
Lots
of
of
things.
I need
minis.
minis. Lots of minis.
Very detailed minis.
Yep.
They have all the muscles on there.
So many muscles.
So many muscles.
So,
So for the south, you like pick it like.
I demand that you do that every time you play.
Yeah, and you have to make the sounds too, because
Yeah.
really, it is because you gain style points, right? That's
I
Wait,
really,
but do you have to anime yell with it?
I really hope that the rules have something about that.
Yeah.
shouting out attack names, stuff like that.
You
Yeah.
act it out for your mini character.
I think you're
Yeah.
you're imagining a whole new genre of games that you can design here.
That sounds cool. It's like the.
But I want a little like catapult for my tokens so I can like make them do sweet flips.
Oh, the like a little boop flippy.
Now I'm imagining a weird mousetrap game where you're trying to set it up.
Except
Anyway,
instead of trying to catch
like
a
a
mouse,
puppet?
you're trying to kill a bunch of demons.
Yes.
anyway, it's on Kickstarter. Do you like Devil May Cry? It's there.
If
Yes.
you don't,
If you don't,
it's also
I
there.
don't.
It's still there.
The
Nothing you can do
final,
about
the
it.
final Kickstarter we wanted to cover is very, very different. This is a story game. It's a town called Malice. So it's a Nordic horror story
So
game.
it's not in Maine?
No.
It could be.
Well, it could be. It's anywhere where there's lots of ice
And darkness.
and darkness. It's
And
like
anywhere
actual
remote.
winter is coming.
So
Oh,
this
whoa.
is basically the story game of if you wanted to play like Girl with the Dragon Tattoo plus Fargo plus The Thing, plus Twin Peaks, like something like mix all those together.
One of those things sounds fun as a game.
One of these things.
Well, I think all of them probably do have some kind of game. So this is a story game. It explicitly calls out that it borrows a lot of its DNA or inspiration from Fiasco. So it's going to be bringing a lot of that to the table. But the things that kind of stuck out to me is that it boiled that kind of story down to 3 pillars. You have the body, which is the body you find that kind of kicks things off.
Yeah.
You have the event, which is whatever's happening in the town that's super important to the operation of the town that the body threatens. And then you have the darkness, which is whatever horrors are lurking like in the woods or underneath people's houses or whatever. So you could end up with a wide variety of stories. I mean, you could do Twin Peaks with this. You could do Alan Wake with this. There's a lot of interesting possibilities
You
here.
can do Monster of the Week with this, but really confined to just the one location.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
And you could do like some of those cannibalistic stories too. Like that could be a more of like not necessarily a very horror like mystery monster cannibal. I mean, it was a big thing that happened. There's like a whole community that ate each other.
Yeah.
Recently?
No. Like
Oh.
like in the discovery of America.
Back in the olden times of the
Olden
1970s.
I think what you're suggesting is Donner Party, the story game.
Yeah. Oh, there you go. That's
Yeah.
what it's Donnie Park.
Well, you were mentioning before the show started that a lot of the scary horror story games, like they often end up being more funny or lighthearted.
funny.
People are cracking jokes. I know my game, And Then We Died. It's about you're playing as ghosts and trying to figure out how you died, but it's always very funny. So it's interesting to see and especially from this Nordic tradition where they have a lot of these just like dark, intense experiences.
Yeah.
They can capture that a little bit more.
I'm excited to actually see something like that's why I like Dread so much, because you have the tower and you pull and your heart's racing and everybody doesn't want to kick the table. So I'm wondering how that's going to translate, because I'm a big fan of story horror.
If you like the tower tension in Dread, we should
Yeah.
talk about Star-Crossed, which is the story of 2 lovers who can't be with each other, and it's the exact same mechanic of the Tower of Dread.
Oh.
Nice.
I just like other like I do like rolling dice, but sometimes I want to do more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I love games that have a different kind of mechanic, and like
Yeah.
Fiasco absolutely had a completely different kind of mechanic. So it'll be interesting to see how this game kind of pulls from and inspires that.
Yeah.
And that is all we have for Kickstarter.
That's it,
Yeah,
and that's
thank
all
you.
we have for TableTakes this week. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next Friday at the same time. Don't forget to check out that D&D stream. Don't forget to check out that Mox special event. What's that called again?
Mox Gauntlet.
That Mox Gauntlet on
and the event
Sunday.
registration.
Yep.
And Gen Con event registration on Sunday.
Gen Con.
But that was Table Takes. I'm Christian. This is Bandai, Emma, and Derek. We'll see you next time. Have a great week.
See ya.